Arthur Conan Doyle, The Return of Sherlock Holmes. The Adventure of the Solitary Cyclist, Part 2. We had learned from the lady that she travels on Monday by the train that leaves Waterloo at 9:50. So I started early and took the 9:13 train. At Farnham Station, I easily found the way to Charlington Heath. It was impossible to mistake the place of the young lady's adventure, because the road runs between open heath on one side and an old yew hedge on the other, which surrounds a park full of magnificent trees. There was a main gate made of old stone covered with lichen, with worn heraldic symbols on top of the pillars. But besides this main entrance for carriages, I saw several gaps in the hedge with paths leading through them. The house could not be seen from the road, but everything around it suggested sadness and decay. The heath was covered with bright yellow gorse flowers, shining beautifully in the spring sunshine. I hid behind one of these bushes so that I could see both the gate of the hall and a long part of the road on both sides. When I arrived, the road was empty, but soon I saw a cyclist coming from the opposite direction. He wore a dark suit, and I saw that he had a black beard. When he reached the end of the Charlington grounds, he jumped off his bicycle and led it through a gap in the hedge, where he disappeared from my view. 15 minutes passed, and then another cyclist appeared. This time it was the young lady coming from the station. I saw her look around as she reached the hedge. A moment later, the man came out from his hiding place, jumped on his bicycle, and followed her. In the wide landscape, they were the only moving figures, the graceful girl sitting straight on her bicycle, and the man behind her bending low over his handlebars, moving in a secretive way. She looked back at him and slowed down. He slowed down too. She stopped. He stopped as well, staying about 200 yards behind her. Her next action was surprising and brave. She suddenly turned her bicycle and rode straight at him. But he was just as quick and rode away as fast as he could. Soon she returned along the road again, holding her head high and not paying any more attention to him. He also turned and continued to follow her at a distance, until they disappeared around a bend in the road. I stayed in my hiding place, and it was a good decision, because soon the man came back, riding slowly. He entered the gates of the hall and got off his bicycle. For a few minutes I could see him standing among the trees. His hands were raised, and he seemed to be fixing his tie. Then he got on his bicycle again and rode away from me down the path toward the hall. I ran across the heath and looked through the trees. Far away I could see parts of the old gray building with its many Tudor chimneys. But the path went through thick bushes, and I could not see the man anymore. However, it seemed to me that I had done quite good work that morning, and I walked back to Farnham in high spirits. The local house agent could not tell me anything about Charlington Hall, and sent me to a well-known company in Pall Mall. I stopped there on my way home, and was treated politely by the clerk. No, I could not rent Charlington Hall for the summer. I was too late. It had been rented about a month earlier. The tenant's name was Mr. Williamson. He was a respectable older gentleman. The polite agent said he could not tell me anything more, because he could not discuss his client's business. Mr. Sherlock Holmes listened carefully to the long report I gave him that evening, but he did not give the short praise I had hoped for. In fact, his serious face became even more severe as he spoke about what I had done and what I had not done. "Your hiding place, my dear Watson, was very poor. You should have been behind the hedge. Then you would have seen this interesting person more closely. As it is, you were several hundred yards away, and can tell me even less than Miss Smith. She thinks she does not know the man. I am sure she does. Why else would he be so anxious that she should not get close enough to see his face? You say he was bending over his handlebars. That is another attempt to hide himself. You have really done very badly. He goes back to the house, and you want to find out who he is. And you go to a London house agent? What should I have done? I said, a little angrily. You should have gone to the nearest pub. That is where people in the countryside talk. They would have told you everything, from the owner of the house to the kitchen maid. Williamson. That name tells me nothing. If he is an older man, then he cannot be this active cyclist who rides away so quickly from that strong young lady. What have we learned from your trip? That the girl's story is true. I never doubted that. That there is a connection between the cyclist and the hall. I never doubted that either. That the hall is rented by Williamson. Who is helped by that? Well, well, my dear friend, do not look so sad. We cannot do much more until next Saturday. In the meantime, I may make 1 or 2 inquiries myself. The next morning we received a note from Miss Smith. She described clearly and shortly the same events that I had seen. But the most important part of the letter was in the postscript. I am sure that you will keep my secret, Mr. Holmes, when I tell you that my situation here has become difficult because my employer has asked me to marry him. I am sure that his feelings are very deep and honest. At the same time, I have already given my promise to another. He accepted my refusal very seriously, but also very kindly. You can understand, however, that the situation is a little uncomfortable. Our young friend seems to be getting into serious trouble, said Holmes thoughtfully, as he finished the letter. The case clearly has more interesting points and more chance of development than I first thought. A quiet, peaceful day in the countryside would do me good, and I am thinking of going there this afternoon to test 1 or 2 ideas that I have. Holmes's quiet day in the countryside had a strange ending. He arrived at Baker Street late in the evening with a cut on his lip and a swollen bruise on his forehead. He also looked rather wild, like someone who might be investigated by Scotland Yard. He was very amused by his own adventure and laughed loudly as he told the story. I get very little physical exercise, so it is always enjoyable, said he. You know that I am quite good at the old British sport of boxing. Sometimes it is useful. Today, for example, I would have been in serious trouble without it. I asked him to tell me what had happened. I found that country pub which I told you about, and there I made some careful inquiries. I was in the bar, and a talkative landlord told me everything I wanted to know. Williamson is a white-bearded man, and he lives alone at the hall with a small group of servants. There is a rumor that he is or was a clergyman. But some things during his short stay at the hall seemed very unclerical to me. I have already asked at a clerical agency, and they told me that there was a man with that name who was a clergyman, but his past is quite dark. The landlord also told me that there are usually visitors at the hall on weekends. A lively group, sir. And especially one gentleman with a red mustache, Mr. Woodley, who is often there. We had just reached this point when the gentleman himself walked in. He had been drinking in another room and had heard everything. He asked who I was, what I wanted, and why I was asking questions. He spoke very loudly and used very strong words. He ended his angry speech by hitting me, which I could not completely avoid. The next few minutes were very enjoyable. It was my straight left against a wild fighter. You can see how I look now. Mr. Woodley had to go home in a cart. So that was the end of my trip to the countryside. I must admit that, although it was enjoyable, my day near Surrey was not much more useful than yours. On Thursday, we received another letter from our client. You will not be surprised, Mr. Holmes, she wrote, to hear that I am leaving Mr. Carruthers' employment. Even the high pay cannot make me accept the discomfort of my situation. On Saturday, I will come to town, and I do not plan to return. Mr. Carruthers has now got a carriage, so the dangers of the lonely road, if there were ever any dangers, are now gone. As for the main reason why I am leaving, It is not only the difficult situation with Mr. Carruthers, but also the return of that horrible man, Mr. Woodley. He was always unpleasant, but now he looks even worse, because he seems to have had an accident, and his face is badly damaged. I saw him from the window, but I am glad to say I did not meet him. He had a long talk with Mr. Carruthers, who seemed very upset afterwards. Woodley must be staying nearby, because he did not sleep here, and yet I saw him again this morning moving quietly in the bushes. I would rather have a wild animal loose here. I hate and fear him more than I can say. How can Mr. Carruthers accept such a man even for a moment? However, all my troubles will be over on Saturday. So I hope, Watson, so I hope, said Holmes seriously. There is some deep plot around that young woman, and it is our duty to make sure that no one harms her on that final journey. I think, Watson, that we must take time to go there together on Saturday morning and make sure that this strange and unclear case does not end badly. I must admit that until now I had not seen the case as very serious. It seemed more strange and unusual than dangerous. It is not unusual for a man to follow a very beautiful woman. And if he was so shy that he did not speak to her and even ran away when she came near, then he was not very dangerous. The rough man Woodley was different, but except for one time, he had not bothered our client, and now he visited Carruthers' house without meeting her. The man on the bicycle was probably one of the weekend visitors at the hall that the landlord had mentioned, but who he was and what he wanted was still unclear. It was Holmes's serious manner and the fact that he put a revolver into his pocket before we left that made me feel that something dangerous might be hidden behind these strange events. After a rainy night, there came a beautiful morning. The countryside, covered with heath and bright yellow gorse flowers, looked even more beautiful to eyes tired of the dull gray colors of London. Holmes and I walked along the wide, sandy road, breathing in the fresh morning air and enjoying the sound of birds and the feeling of spring. From a higher place on the side of Crooksbury Hill, we could see the dark hall standing among the old oak trees, which, although very old, were still younger than the building itself. Holmes pointed to the long road below, which stretched like a red-yellow line between the brown heath and the fresh green woods. Far away, we could see a small, dark shape, a vehicle coming towards us. Holmes made a short sound of impatience. "I had allowed a margin of half an hour," said he. "If that is her carriage, she must be going for an earlier train. I am afraid, Watson, that she will pass Charlington before we can meet her." As soon as we passed the hill, we could no longer see the carriage. We hurried forward as fast as we could, but my inactive life began to affect me, and I had to fall behind. Holmes, however, was always fit and full of energy. His quick step did not slow until suddenly, when he was about 100 yards ahead of me, he stopped. I saw him raise his hand in a sign of shock and despair. At the same moment, an empty dog-cart appeared around the bend in the road. The horse was running, and the reins were hanging loose as the cart came quickly towards us. "Too late, Watson, too late," cried Holmes as I ran to him, breathing hard. "Fool that I was not to think about the earlier train. It is kidnapping, Watson, kidnapping, maybe even murder. We must stop the horse, block the road. Yes, that's right. Now jump in and let us see if I can fix my mistake." We jumped into the cart, and Holmes turned the horse and struck it with the whip. We rushed back along the road. As we turned the bend, we could see the whole road between the hall and the heath. I grabbed Holmes's arm. "That's the man," I said, trying to catch my breath. A single cyclist was coming towards us. His head was down, and his shoulders were bent as he used all his strength on the pedals. He was riding very fast. Suddenly he lifted his bearded face, saw us near him, and stopped quickly, jumping off his bicycle. His black beard stood out against his pale face, and his eyes were bright as if he had a fever. He looked at us and at the cart. Then he showed surprise. "Hey, stop there!" he shouted, holding his bicycle to block our way. "Where did you get that cart? Stop, man!" he cried, pulling a pistol from his pocket. "Stop, or I will shoot your horse!" Holmes threw the reins into my hands and jumped down from the cart. "You are the man we want to see. Where is Miss Violet Smith?" he said quickly and clearly. "That is what I am asking you. You are in her cart. You should know where she is." We found the cart on the road. There was no one in it. We are going back to help the young lady. My God, what shall I do?" cried the stranger in great despair. "They have taken her, that devil Woodley and that wicked priest. Come, man, come. If you really are her friend, stand with me, and we will save her, even if I must die in Charlington Wood."